the site surveys to go on federal waters and they're occurring now is concerning for a number of reasons. One of the worst things that I think is that it's currently whale migration time. So you have the maumins and the calves migrating up from Mexico currently, and you've got vessels out there blasting the ocean at 228 decibels. What happens to the whales and calves is that their hearing is impaired. A common saying is a deaf whale is a dead whale, because if they can't hear, they have trouble navigating, they have trouble feeding, they have trouble with communication. So it's incredibly important that, and we thought it was incredibly important that this site surveys were given a pass through, not during whale migration season, but they started them, and they're going on correctly. The other authorization that's needed by the companies that are doing this work is called an incidental harassment authorization. And it doesn't sound terrible, but basically what it means is that as companies are awarded IHAs, that means they're allowed to harass and injure or kill animals. So they have a certain quota amount that they can actually damage. And so all the companies that are doing the site surveys have gotten or will be getting IHAs. This one's a little hard to read, but it's incredibly important. So on the East Coast, as Nicole said, the East Coast is ahead of us. And what we're really hoping is that California can learn from the East Coast and learn what's gone wrong and what's gone right, if there is such a thing, with the offshore wind. But since they started the site surveys and the offshore wind activity on the East Coast, since 2016, they've had a marked increase in whale stranding and whale death. And the circle shows you 2016, and the blue line is humpback whales, and the red line is minke whales. And so you can see that there's been a tremendous increase. Interestingly, it's sadly, since January 1 of this year, there have been more than 50 marine mammals that have either stranded or washed ashore on the East Coast, directly in the area where there is site surveys using the high decibel level sonar. And what we know is that those are the animals that are stranding or washing up, and up to 10 times that amount of mammals could be sinking, just not coming to shore. So what they're seeing on shore is likely not representative of what's really happening out in the ocean in conjunction with the high decibel surveys that they're doing. And you may or may not know that yesterday or day before yesterday, a whale washed up in Pismo, and I think it maybe went back out. But it's just interesting, and we keep pushing that there certainly has to be, we believe there's a strong correlation between the offshore wind site surveys and the whales stranding on the beach. And we hope that certainly the whale that washed up yesterday was an anomaly, but we'll see what happens, since the surveys, I think, started in mid-April and offshore. And then this is just another, actually this is something that we've been using in some of the marketing that we've been putting out, but we're really looking at, what do we really want? Do we want a wonderland that we currently have, or do we want a wasteland?
So now I'm going to be talking about construction. This is a picture here of a substation. So these wind installations off of our coast will require probably 5 or 6 of these offshore substations. When you go down to Santa Barbara and there are those oil rigs out there, it's like that, probably about that size, maybe even bigger. I think this one has a helipad on it, so they can land helicopters on it. These will be absolutely visible from shore, and they're needed as part of the infrastructure to bring all the electricity in, and we'll talk about that. But these are these massive structures that need to go along with the turbines. So this is just very briefly how the system works. So you have the turbines, you have the cables strung in between them. Again, since it's so deep, they cannot be buried. So they're just there, floating in the water, if you will. They'll eventually go into a substation, which is near shore, and then get buried and then come up on the beach and tie into the power grid that way. But you can see, and I feel how vulnerable this is. Again, these are just cables kind of out there in the ocean. If there's big storms, who knows what could happen? Are they going to be vulnerable to a terrorist attack or to just some entity wanting to mess with us? Oh, let's just cut their electricity. So it doesn't seem like a real smart and secure system in my mind. Lots of room for errors. Further, another piece is that, like I said, they won't be drilled into the ground. They're going to need to be tethered with these huge chains. So each link weighs between 1,100 and 1,500 pounds. Each mooring line will be nearly 3 miles long, and they need to be much longer than the actual depth in the water, because you can imagine the waves going up and down. So it needs to accommodate for that. So anything that's at the bottom of the ocean, if it's reefy, whatever kind of habitat is there, will constantly be being scoured by these enormous chains. And I'm assuming it'll kill whatever happens to be there. So it'll damage coral, bottom feeders, anything in its way is going to be harmed by these gigantic chains. So now, how is it going to impact us here on land? There are no industrial ports yet located on the Central Coast, but eventually industrial ports will be necessary for this wind project. This is a picture of an industrial port. I'm not sure where this is, probably somewhere in Europe. But these are massive ships, as we talked about. These are huge structures, these blades and the turbine bases and everything. They need massive ships. So I'm not sure where on the Central Coast they can locate these. Obviously, the manufacturing ports, I think they're going to be in Humboldt and Long Beach. Is that they've chosen these ports? They're giving them a ton of money. Those are already industrial ports. But now, somehow, our small town, our small harbor in Morro Bay is being targeted as the ideal, in quotes, small port facility. So there's different kinds of ports. The port that they want to have here would be what's called operations and maintenance. So they want to be able to shuttle crews back and forth, who can work on it, who can maintain it. The ships that will need to come in will be up to 400 feet in length. Not only is there one wind company, but there's 3 who all want to have a home in Morro Bay, and we've been told that they do not want to share. So you can imagine 3 wind companies having massive docks, all in our national marine estuary, which is the Morro Bay Harbor. We have a colony of endangered southern sea otters. There's about 40 individuals. They hang out kind of right by the harbor mouth there. There's no way that they survive this sort of industrial port. And there's many other animals threatened, endangered. It is a marine protected area, so I'm not quite sure. And thank goodness California has strong environmental protective laws. So hopefully those laws hold up, but it seems like, things are crumbling a little bit now that those laws maybe aren't serving the powers that be. They want to kind of get rid of them a little bit because they're standing in the way of progress. At Port San Luis, if any of you go there, I know people like to surf in Avila Beach and recreate there, also in Morro Bay. This is a rendering. Both these pictures, by the way, this one and the prior one were from a study by an organization called REACH, which is a regional group here on the Central Coast that does economic development. They've really been courting this wind energy because they see dollar signs. We don't quite see the dollar signs that they think are going to come in. We see a whole lot of dollar signs going out. This is a massive infrastructure that you can see here, and we've been told, oh, this is not going to happen. They just put it in their report, but that's not really going to happen. Guess what? I don't believe that. These folks, I don't think, believe it. Maybe it's not going to be this first time around, but if If it comes to fruition, where they get the 4,500 square miles, I would bet that Port San Luis is going to just have that target on it.